Hi,
Hi, Sarah. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. So, I was just sort of setting the context for this, saying, waiting for a couple of people to join in, um, and just to, give a brief introduction, etc. So, I'm Supriya. We're talking about infertility dialogues. We have with us Dr. Sarah Bizzell, who is a holistic health and wellness coach. She's a fertility coach as well, a herbalist, and also a birth doula and a breastfeeding advocate. She's also the founder and executive director of Faithfully Fertile Foundation, a place that's sort of helping people dealing with infertility, with adoption, and helping them with education support and financial assistance. So she's doing amazing work. Welcome, Sarah. And today we're going to be talking a little bit about her story. And how about we start with some of what you do, Sarah? Just tell us a little bit more about your work, what it entails, and how did you decide to become a fertility coach?
Oh, well, thank you. And thank you for having me on this morning with you. Well, my story kind of started after giving birth, to be completely honest. I gave birth to my oldest daughter in 2009. She was born via emergency C section. And after having this C section, I was told by the doctor that I had some internal scarring, and that she had scraped it to try to fix it so that I would be able to conceive in the future. Now, if you know anything about scar tissue, when you scrape it or mess with it, especially if you don't specialize in that, it can cause issues. And that's exactly what happened to me. I ended up finding out about 5 years later that because of this surgery, my fallopian tubes had pulled upward, went backwards, and fused to the very front of my uterus. The specialist said that he tried his best to fix them, but because they had been in that position for so long, that he was unable to save them and they were stretched. So if I did get pregnant, it would be an ectopic pregnancy. So he removed both of my tubes and gave me the option to do in vitro. And I did begin the process in 2017 into 2018. But a series of unfortunate events happened, and the doctor that I was working with originally, he passed away, and I was transferred to another doctor, and he just did not really help me. His office never released any of my documents to me, and they were not really telling me what I was supposed to be doing or how the process was supposed to go. So I decided to walk away. And in that moment, I had to make a decision whether I was going to allow everything that I had gone through to kind of be my woe is me sob story, or if I was going to allow it to empower me and inspire others. So I decided to kind of use that as a platform to share my story, to share other people's story, and support other people. And that's why I began supporting people in fertility, and helping them throughout the process of pregnancy, as well as why I started Faithfully Fertile Foundation.
So that's actually an interesting, story, Sarah, and I sort of relate to it because that happened. A little bit of a context happened to me as well. So I shifted doctors after my husband passed away because I just wasn't confident enough in the first clinic that I had gone to, and I sort of just felt they didn't feel right to me. I sort of felt that they're just there to make money off me, and I wanted to shift
Mhm.
to a place that gives me more positive vibes. So when I shifted clinics, this first clinic refused to give me any of my documents. They were refusing to tell me what were the drugs that they are putting into my system and how much. And something that would have actually helped the other doctor decide the further course of action. And I found them found it so ridiculous. It's my information, it's my medical record, and you're not sharing that with me. So actually, I think that's something, when people get into these kind of things, is if they know beforehand, they would probably be more proactive in asking for that information. And that brings me to the next question, which is again about some of your work. So in India, I don't think we have anything called a fertility coach, because you just, one, it's very hush hush, and two, you just go to the clinic and you go with whatever the doctor tells you. So could you explain a little bit more of what you do as a fertility coach, and how, maybe some examples of how you've helped people navigate some situations?
Absolutely. So with my background in being a birth doula, I kind of really learned to be a support person. And with birthing here in America, and becoming a doula, you kind of learn to support people whether they decide to birth naturally or if they want medical intervention, or even if they decide to have a C-section, you can kind of shift and be whatever they need you to be. So, in being a fertility coach, I'm the person that supports you no matter what route you go. If you want to go naturally, I am an herbalist, so I can help you as far as figuring out the herbs and things that may help you to do it that way. If you just want to cleanse and, kind of get rid of the toxins and help your body to be a little bit more susceptible to getting pregnant, we can go that route. If you want to go through in vitro or some type of reproductive assistance, then I'm there to support you in that way too. So if you still want to cleanse, we'll do that. But if you want to go straight into working with the doctor, I'm the person that helps you by advocating for you, helping you to understand what's being said to you, helping you to know what can be a side effect for these types of medications, questions to ask your doctor. If they say something to you and you need a little bit more understanding, I'm there to support you by offering you research studies so that you can see, maybe this one will be better for you or that one. I'm the person that helps you to figure out what kind of testing you might need. Maybe your doctor didn't offer you something that could be good for you. So maybe you haven't tested your vitamin D levels, or you haven't looked at whether or not your blood type is compatible with that of the baby's, or maybe you are a person that suffered a lot of losses, and we kind of want to get to the root of the issue and figure it out. So I would offer you suggestions based on what research has shown, and things like that. I'm also the person that you can call if things don't work out. Let's say your IVF process didn't work out and you didn't get pregnant, and you're really upset about it, but you may not want to talk to your spouse because you feel like they don't get you, or you may not want to talk to a friend because they won't understand. So I'll be the person that you can call, and you can cry or whatever it is that you need to do. And I'm there to support you because, again, I've been through the process. I've felt the things that you have gone through and the things that you probably felt too. So I'm just a little bit more relatable to a lot of people, whereas their friends and their family members may not get it. If you see a pregnancy announcement and it happens to make you feel sad, and it may even be your best friend's announcement and you feel guilty for feeling that way. I get it. So, you can text me or you can call me, whereas you might not be able to tell that to your friends. So I'm the support person. If you want me to go with you to appointments, then I'll be there. If you No matter what you want to do throughout your journey, or what you might be facing.
I think that's an amazing job that you're doing, honestly, because if I had that kind of a support while I was going through my journey, honestly, I feel that experience would have been much smoother. Because what I felt throughout was a lot of decisions were made on the spot, because I didn't have that information available beforehand. And when the doctor was telling me stuff, it was often very immediate. And especially the first clinic that I went to, the day I was supposed to have my embryo transfer was the day they told me how many embryos are there and what quality they are. And I was literally on that table for embryo transfer, and they're like, decide now, how many do you want implanted? And I'm like, what? I mean, it's some information that I would have loved beforehand to discuss with my partner, to deliberate, to figure out what works for us. But a lot of
Mhm.
this stuff happened very immediate. So I think having a fertility coach like yourself would have really, really smoothed out the journey for me. So that actually brings me to the next question as well, which is about secondary infertility. And honestly, I
Mhm.
think, especially in India, that's even less talked about than primary infertility, because people, have these expectations that if you already have a kid, then why would you want to go through this process again to have another one? And actually, there's a friend I met in the clinic who was going through her secondary infertility thing, and all she could have after her first baby were ectopic pregnancies that had to be then medically terminated. And so then she also chose the in vitro route. And she kept hearing these kind of, statements. So anything that you've experienced or your clients who face this, what's like some of the most ridiculous things that you've heard?
Well, here in America, especially in my community, the Black community is not really talked about a lot. If you have a child, like you said, it's expected that you would just have another one. So for me, and for a lot of people that I've seen and talked to, they often say things like their parents or their grandparents or people that they interact with often will say things to them. And I even had my husband's grandmother. She didn't mean to say anything, but we were at her house one day, and our daughter, I want to say she was maybe 3, and she said to me, like, when are you going to have another baby? And I was just like, kind of, shocked by the question, because we hadn't really told anybody that we were having issues or even that we were trying at that point. And at first, I would just say things to people like, oh, maybe one day, and try to act like we didn't want more children. And that went on until she was maybe 5 years old. I just kind of kept saying, oh, we'll see. But then the questions got more and more frequent because people would say, oh, she's 5 now. So if you want to have another baby, you should go ahead and do it because she's getting older and you're getting older. Like, what are you doing? And I remember an older lady at the church that we used to attend. She said, when are you going to give your husband another baby? And I just looked at her at this point, because I had been about 5 days late the week before and then got my period. So this was like really fresh for me. And she said that to me. And I'm still in the middle of, going through my period right now, dealing with all of these emotions. And I just looked at her and I said, I've really been trying and I've been trying for years and it's just not happening. And she looked at me and was like, oh my God, like kind of, feeling embarrassed and all of these things. And she was like, I had no idea. I'm so sorry. And from that day on, I started being very honest with people, and their reactions changed because they were like, I just didn't know. So I think people say a lot of insensitive things because they don't know what's happening. And because we try to hide what we're dealing with or act like there's some type of shame or stigma behind it, it causes people to think that we're okay with just having the one and we don't want any more children, which is definitely not true. So for me, sharing my story kind of helped people to see that it doesn't matter whether you've had one child or 3 children, you can become infertile and never have any more children. Or, you may never even have them at all. So I think, for me, it was mostly my family that would say things, but it was because I didn't share my journey and they just didn't know what was happening.
Yeah, I think that's very important, and probably one of the things that I'm trying to bring out, because statistics say that 14% of India's population is infertile, right?
Mhm.
Um, and yet you never hear these stories because you only hear doctors talking about it, you only hear clinics talking about it, but there are not many people who are willing to come forward and say, hey, you know what, I wasn't able to have a baby for whatever reasons, and therefore I opted for assisted reproduction, because there are not many people who are, uh, very willing to share that, because it's still quite a bit of a taboo that you're not, able to have a baby here. So
Mhm.
hopefully, with all these conversations, we'll be able to overcome that. uh, but one quick question for you, again, which is about, I know you started out with your secondary infertility journey, and then, how it aligned with your work as a birth doula. So I just want to say, with your work experience, with the experience of the people that you worked with, and your own journey that you've gone through, how has it changed your outlook, and, how it's impacted your work?
Um, it it changed me because for me, when I first started the journey of even being a birth doula, I was still going through my own fertility journey. I was in the process of adopting, and all of these things were happening kind of simultaneously. Um, and when I first started working with women, I would often feel kind of sad because I knew that, I'm not going to experience this again. But as things went on, it really became something beautiful to me because I realized that I was helping people to avoid going through the things that I had dealt with. And it became really healing for me. So, with every baby that I see being born, or every time someone gets pregnant and they say, "Oh, I couldn't have done this without you," or every time someone asks me a question about parenting a young baby or breastfeeding or whatever it is, it just makes me feel really happy because I'm able to impact someone in some way. Whereas before, when I was dealing with my own journey, I was really struggling and depressed and feeling like I didn't matter because for a lot of women, and especially for me, I attached my womanhood to my ability to reproduce. So when I wasn't able to do that as much as I felt like I should have been able to, it caused me to really feel like I wasn't as much of a woman. Um, but as I went throughout my journey and I started supporting other women, I saw just how strong I was, just how strong and powerful they were. And it really caused me to come up with my little motto, which is, your worth is not tied to your womb. Whether you birth one baby, zero babies, seven babies, however many children you have, that doesn't make you any more or any less of a woman. It's just what you do to impact others and how you leave your mark on the world. So that's what I'm really focused on doing, trying to spread the word about infertility, trying to bring awareness to it, and just really make a powerful impact on other people.
I think that is a beautiful motto. Your worth is not tied to your womb. I think that's like one of the best things I've heard today, because we do tend to do that. Whether we've it's even if you've been brought up very non-conservative, or we believe in gender equity and equal participation and all that. Yet when it comes to this whole topic of having babies, we sort of feel that we're not doing enough if we're not able to have babies. And honestly, there are occasional times when I still feel it. Ultimately, even through when I went through my IVF journey, I had to have, I wasn't able to conceive, and they couldn't figure out why. So there was no reason. We did every possible test, and all the results were like positive. But they couldn't figure out what's going wrong and why am I not able to conceive. So I ultimately had to opt for surrogacy, and then my son was born via surrogacy. So I'm almost 40 now, and in my entire life, I've never been pregnant once. So I sometimes feel that, uh, what would it have felt like, you know, uh, to actually nurture a life within you and give birth to a life, because that's for ages and ages, that's what a woman was defined as, a giver of
Mhm.
life, and that's not something that I've been able to do. And um, yeah, it feels odd sometimes, but I think I've made my peace with it. But I really love that statement of yours. Your worth is not tied to your womb. So amazing that. Um, Finally, moving on to like the last two questions, and The first one is, of course, about, because at Infertility Dialogues, what I'm trying to do is bring out as much awareness about information that's available out there. When you went through your secondary infertility journey, was there something that you felt could have supported you better in terms of either, support systems or information that was available out there? If you could give us some details on that.
Well, absolutely. When I first started my journey, I didn't know anything about infertility. It wasn't really something that was talked about. I thought that I was alone and that there was no one around me that was dealing with it. And as I continued throughout my journey, I realized that that wasn't true. It was just that women were ashamed. And even men that are going through this are ashamed as well. And they don't share because they feel like they would look like less than a man or less than a woman. So for me, I think stories, just having those stories there to be able to connect with and to know that you're not alone, that you're not crazy, that someone else out there feels the exact same way that you do, and someone is dealing with what you're going through, just really made me feel a lot better. So when I could go to Google and type in infertility and find all of these blogs, and when I first started this journey, it was, I want to say, about 2012, 2013. So there were some blogs out there, but definitely not as many as there are now. Now you have YouTube videos, you have Instagram, you have so many things. So as things continue to grow, it continues to get better. But I think that we should have more stories, and that fertility doctors should do more educating, and just kind of walking people through the process of what things look like. Because, like I said, when I went through my journey, I didn't have any support. I didn't know anything other than what I had already found from my own research or what I could Google, because they didn't say anything to me. It was just kind of like, you come in here, you pay your money, and you just do what I tell you to do. Um, and when you're waiting for test results and you don't know what they even tested you for, it's very nerve wracking. You feel lost, you feel alone, you just feel like you're in the middle of, I don't know, like the Twilight Zone, just waiting to figure out whether or not you're going to be able to conceive. And that's not really a good feeling. So if you had more information, if fertility doctors were more open, if your OBGYNs were doing more testing early on. So if you come, and you're having issues like PCOS or hormonal imbalances, and they actually started testing people, instead of just waiting, I think that would be great as well. But more information, more stories, and then more support groups, which is one of the things that I decided to start because I didn't see a lot of them out there. And when people are walking throughout this journey, especially if they suffered any type of loss or they're dealing with infertility, they're looking for support. They need support groups. They want to know that there are people out there that they can turn to and talk to, but you can't really find a lot of groups. I know in my area, I didn't see any. So I think it's important that we have all of those things.
I think that's very true. Even here, I don't think we have enough and more conversations happening around this topic. So, one quick thing then, if somebody's looking for this information, and I know that you do fertility coaching, where can they find you and how can they reach out to you?
Well, the easiest way is to just go to my Instagram, which is Sierra the BB Doula. I'm also on Facebook underneath the same name. And if you click on my bio, it gives you my website where you can contact me. There's a work with me button there. So everything's under my bio on Instagram. And you can find me and, reach out, ask questions. I'm always here to help.
Amazing. So, last closing question is, there are a lot of people who are starting their journey with assisted reproduction. Somebody who's also just started but trying to find their way through it. So, any advice or any words that you have for them?
Yes. So if you're just starting your journey through infertility, I want to encourage you and again let you know that Your worth is not tied to your womb. And for men, if you're dealing with this, your worth is not tied to your ability to reproduce or not be able to reproduce. You're still a man, you're still a woman. So I just want to start with that. But if you're starting your journey, I think it's important that you make sure that you do actually get the testing done, go see a doctor, figure out what's going on so that you are able to get the help that you need. One of the things that I did was to wait. Um, I did not, I don't know, for some reason I didn't feel comfortable at first, kind of going to see a fertility doctor. It was foreign to me. It felt really weird and like I was admitting that I had a problem. But go see someone, allow them to do the test, and figure out what it is that you want to do. Whether you decide to do it naturally or you decide to go with, reproductive assistance, just figure out what the problem is. Start there and then make your decision. Do your research. If you want to get a fertility coach, then do that. But if not, at least do your research, find out what your options are, and make sure that you have proper support, whether it's your family, a support group, a friend. Just have someone be there that you can talk to, that you can lean on, and that you can cry to if you need to.
Great. I think that's amazing, Sarah. Thank you so much for your time today. I think it was a very interesting conversation. At least I've learned a lot, and especially about this whole new field out there. So thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. It was great having you here. And yeah, thank you for all the viewers as well. And if you have any questions later, even for me or for Sarah, please feel free to DM any of us, and we will be sure to answer them. Thank you. Take care.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye bye.
Bye.